So the next piece is digital transformation. And when I talk about digital transformation, this is really what's going on inside an organization. So disruption is sort of the entire market, and transformation is inside an organization. I don't know if people are familiar with Clayton Christensen, but I highly recommend this book. It was written about 25 years ago, and it's probably more relevant today than it was when it was written. This is a fellow from Harvard Business School, and his thesis is that large organizations are not designed to innovate. So if you think of the comparison of a large head office organization to a startup, what large organizations are really good at and need to be really good at is scale. They want to take a product or service and get it out into the market and get as many people as possible using that. The only way that you can do that is to have very rigid processes and workflows in place. They need to be able to rotate employees through jobs and not miss a beat. So by definition, they're designed not to be innovative. They're designed to be very linear in terms of their workflow. On the other hand, you look at the right side here, and this is the photo of the HP garage where Silicon Valley got its start. These small organizations are very nimble. They can do things and change on a dime or experiment, try different things. They're not afraid to fail. One of the things we talk about in the organization all the time is what I call 4 of 6, is let's try 6 different things. We know that 4 are going to fail. We just don't know which 4. And large organizations are not really able to do that inside that very rigid structure. So the concept is what I call corporate venturing or a startup garage. Is large entities need to work either with smaller entities on the outside or create that environment inside their organization to be successful in this new digital world. When we look at this, the normal product life cycle that companies go through are the same. Every product on the planet has the same life cycle. The difference is how long that cycle lasts. So some products might last a few months, while others might last decades. But at the end of the day, they all follow the same pattern of ramping up in the market. You're in the market for a given period of time, and then eventually your product dies off. In the ideal world, the product life cycle is before product A is gone from the market or is falling off, you want to start to have product B and product C and so on. And if people have heard, there's a lot of talk around the number of organizations that have fallen off the Fortune 500 in the last 20 years. The reason for that is the product and the company were sort of one and the same. So as the product died, the company died, and Kodak is a good example of that. The reality is that in today's day and age, if you look at the bottom of the slide, it's too hard to catch up. Again, using Kodak as an example, they consciously stayed away from the digital camera market to drag out the film industry as long as they could. Getting as much out of their investment in the film industry is actually a very smart thing to do. That was a great business decision. The downside is that they were afraid to start up a group that cannibalized that. And subsequently what happened is they couldn't catch up. So once it became obvious that the film industry was done and the digital camera was going to take off, they were too far behind their competitors and were unable to catch up to that. I mentioned the record industry. Here's an example of why startups are so dangerous to these large organizations. So this is the retail money in the music industry from 2000 to 2016. And it was a $21 billion industry for the record labels when they were doing CDs and vinyl prior to Napster coming along. And the very start of this chart is when Napster was launched. And then you'll see this very steady, steep decline. And the entire time, the record industry was trying to put the brakes on that and not really looking at what does the new world mean and how do we make money. If you look at the bottom, the red line and the orange line there, those are the iTunes and the Spotifys and the Google Plays of the world. And the reason that they're so dangerous is that they're starting at zero. So if you look at the streaming example there's about $4 billion in revenue in the streaming space today in the US. The record labels are saying, well, that's not much money compared to the 21 billion that I used to make, so I'm going to try and stop that progression of technology. When the startups are coming along and saying, hey, I'm happy to take 4 billion because 10 years ago I was at zero. And I think this is the thing that senior executives need to understand is that money will be removed from the market. And the best way is to figure out how can you survive in that new market. I'm not saying you don't want to lower the slope of that line because you want to get as much as you can out of your investment, but This is to me why startups are so dangerous, is they're happy with a smaller piece of the pie. So we talked about digital culture a little bit at the start, and like I said, I really believe this falls into two buckets. So one is, how do we unlock the innovation in our organization through culture change? And then the other one is that, how do we create this culture of continuous learning? The idea of digital transformation is not a destination that we work really hard on this for 6, 12, or 18 months and then we're there. This is continual. The only thing that's going to be constant over the next decade is continual change, and that's going to mean continual learning. So those are key parts of, I think, what organizations need to accept.